I remember over the past year, especially in the lead up to the election, this harping on the successes of Bidenomics. I think there was a deep-seated sense that the Democrats were completely out of touch with the discontent. We had some episodes analyzing the lead up to the election. We said, the Democrats are basically gaslighting all of us. And it turns out that's exactly true. It wasn't just a gut feeling. There's this piece that came out this week from Politico called "Voters Were Right About the Economy, the Data Was Wrong." And so while the Democrats were busy hitting us over the head with their statistics saying, the economy is doing great, why don't you recognize it? Americans are just really negative, or they're being manipulated by social media negativity. Well, this is what they found when they actually took a careful look at how this data was being compiled. If we look at unemployment, nearly 1 out of every 4 workers is functionally unemployed in America today. The percentage would come to 23.7% unemployment. Isn't that incredible? At a time when they were saying, we have really great employment figures, that was the reality. So you see this complete disconnect between the official statistics and the reality on the ground. In terms of weekly earnings, they were also saying, workers' wages are on the rise. This was also held up as like an example of the economy is making this rebound. Real wage growth is taking off. If you take just those who are working 40 plus hours and you're taking their income as the median, then it stood at roughly $61,900. Which that's pretty rough to survive on, even that, in major cities in the US. But here's the reality. If you track everyone in the workforce, and that includes part-time workers, unemployed, job seekers, the median wage is actually around $52,000 a year, which means that American workers, on average, are making 16% less than what those official statistics were suggesting. You have this official inflation rate that is using the consumer price index, but that index takes into account the prices of a whole host of articles. And I mean, some of these things are really like luxury items. And so it's kind of a distorted thing. If you want to actually see the impact of inflation on the vast majority of the population, you should be taking like the basic necessary goods that regular working people are buying, are relying on. And if you do, here's for example, in 2023, the official inflation figure was 4.1%. Prices were high from the year before, but they were rising at 4.1%. The true cost of living, as measured by this research that they put together, was actually twice that much. It was at 9.4% increase in 2023 alone. So you're thinking this is housing, rent, this is healthcare, transportation, the things that working people are buying all the time. This is all to show they found that purchasing power fell by 4.3% in 2023. You compare this reality and these statistics with the general perspective that was being bombarded on the public, saying the economy is doing great and people just don't appreciate it. And you can see that in reality, this gaslighting campaign, that was what was happening.
Antonio mentioned that the median wage is $50,000 a year, right? That means half the working class makes more than 50, half makes less, but that's where it is in the middle. If you look at this is using 2023 figures, you take the gross domestic product and divide it among the workers, right? Each worker made more than $200,000 worth of services and goods, basically commodities for the capitalist class. Roughly speaking, that means the worker is earning $50,000 out of the more than $200,000. That means basically, if you're working a 40-hour work week, maybe the first 8 hours you're working for your own wages and benefits, and the rest of the time you're working, who's getting all that wealth? Your boss.
And that's led to huge instability for a lot of people, including those who in the past would consider themselves middle class. I just want to quote, there's an article that quoted someone called Monica, who was a corporate recruiter, lost her job, and she's been looking for a job since May 2024, submitted hundreds of applications across many different industries. She got 15 or 20 interviews, maybe even made it to round 2 or round 3 of the interview, but never actually ended up getting a job. Her fiance was injured and unable to continue running a small business. That's the other thing, right? You have a small business, you think you're doing okay. That's the American dream, get a car, get a house. But any accident like this, now they lost that source of income. She has delayed dental and medical care for herself, including follow-up screenings after a tumor was removed from her body because she couldn't afford the healthcare. drained her savings account, drained her retirement accounts, borrowed from family members, and of course from credit cards that she's now unable to pay off. And I just quote this story because it's like one example that was quoted in this article that was talking about inflation and the inability for people to pay off their debts. And how many of these are there around the US? That's precisely what fueled the discontent that ended up bringing Trump into the White House, because it's been a steady decline for the last 50 years of stagnating wages, of the decline of US capitalism, that liberal establishment, that liberal order that we were talking about presided over that. And Trump came in the absence of an alternative from the left, of a working class party, of any mass communist party or anything like that. And he tapped into that discontent, posing as an outsider. Well, he's an outsider from Washington, that's for sure. Posing as someone that actually defends the interests of regular Americans, if you will, talking about bringing back manufacturing. And that, of course, connected with people. So it's not surprising, a comrade reported that he was doing a paper sale at a mall in Queens in New York City. And a struggling mother with 2 kids stopped to talk with us. And she said that she voted for Trump, but she has no hopes that the administration will actually improve things for her. So she just voted for Trump because she didn't want to vote for the Democrats, and she wanted to do something to reject that status quo. And she's disillusioned, and she's desperate for a solution. And she wasn't ready to get organized right then and there. I don't think, I think a lot of those workers, it's not like they're about to build a revolutionary communist party right now, but she took a photo of our paper and she said she would share our paper, The Communist, with her WhatsApp group, who are probably all also working class mothers and potentially Trump voters. So that really shows, that the political vacuum is fueling Trump into the White House. If there was a left-wing alternative, I think a lot of people would turn to that, and we are able to connect with this mood. And I think as Trump betrays his promises, potentially there can be a huge shift to the left. And we could benefit from that only if we're not caving to the pressures of liberalism and lesser evilism, which are starting to ramp back up.